Before we get to today's episode, I want to tell you guys about a few jobs that are live right now over on Of the West. So first up, 5T Ranch out of Winnemucca, Nevada. They are hiring a farming and ranching foreman. In this role, you would be responsible for managing the haying side of 5T, but you're also going to work on the cattle side of things as well. You manage hay crews, irrigation, operate equipment, everything that makes that side of the business go round. They do say cattle experience is preferred, but if you only fit the farming side of things, they encourage you to still apply. And then next, we have 2 openings with the Livestock Nutrition Center. So LNC specializes in blending customized rations, supplements, premixes, built around the specific nutritional needs of each producer and operation that they work with. So they are hiring a merchandiser based out of Hereford, Texas. In this role, it's going to be very much focused on ingredient sales. So you'll be working the supply chain, managing contracts, negotiating with suppliers, keeping an eye on commodity, logistics, prices. So if that is in your wheelhouse, you definitely want to go check that out. And then they are also hiring a sales consultant based out of Garden City, Kansas. You'll be working directly with livestock producers to design customized feeding programs for their operations. They are looking for somebody with a degree in animal science or a related field and at least 3 years of industry experience. All 3 of those jobs and tons more are live right now over on Of the West. If any of those spark your interest, you want to go learn more, the link is in the show notes. And if it's not the right fit for you, but you know somebody who would be perfect, send it their way because that is what friends do. Now let's get back to the show.
Make sure that if someone's using me to sell their cattle, that I'm providing them with value in their operation.
Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go.
I had an employer call me earlier this summer and she was laughing and she said, Jessie, I had to pause my job listing after a week because I had too many great applicants. And I told her that's probably the best problem that a person can have. But that's what happens when your job post actually reaches the right people. When you list a job on Of the West, you're not just getting a line on a job board. You are putting that position in front of an entire community who already stands your world. Ranchers, marketers, livestock specialists, ag communicators, people who get it. Another employer filled her role within 3 days of posting it. 3 days. One of the other things that's really interesting to me is the listing that has been most popular this year is our premium option, which is the most expensive one. So that's kind of surprising, but it's pinned to the top. It is shared to all of our job seekers. It gets emailed in our emails. And clearly that type of listing is paying off for people, which is such a great feeling to have. So if you are hiring, whether it is one person or an entire team, it might be time to give your posting a little extra reach. You can find all of the details at ofthewest.co/employers, because sometimes you guys finding the right person, it just takes showing up in the right place. Welcome back, you guys, to a brand new episode of the show. As always, I am your host, Jessie Jarvis, and we have a really exciting interview for you all today. So let's throw it back to 1987. There were 2 men, Jim Odell and Buddy Jeffers, and they had a vision. They had spent their entire lives in the livestock auction business, and they dreamed of something bigger, a way to make marketing cattle more profitable for producers and more convenient for buyers, but not just for themselves on what was going to be a national scale. And at the time, the way that cattle were sold hadn't necessarily changed much, right? You loaded them up, you hauled them to the local sale barn or the auction house, and you kind of hoped for the best. But Jim and Buddy were visionaries, and they decided to break that tradition entirely, which allowed them to create the first company in history to market cattle on satellite television, which again, this is back in the 80s. I want you guys to sit with that for a second. This was also in the very early days. The internet barely even existed at this point. And these two men looked at an industry that was rooted in tradition and said, there is a better way to do this. Now, almost 40 years later, Superior Livestock is the largest cattle marketing network in the United States, and they sell nearly 2 million head of cattle annually with over 400 representatives across the country. They have connected thousands of producers and a nationwide buyer base, and they've truly changed the way that our industry does business when it comes to cattle marketing. And as much vision as Jim and Buddy had, that kind of growth never happens without people who actually make it work every single day. The ranchers who have trusted them, the cattle that they have been able to sell, the sale representatives who build those relationships on the ground and in their communities and across the country. Superior is one of our unlimited hiring partners here at Of the West. And honestly, that is exactly the kind of partnership that I love because it connects the right people with the right opportunities in our industry. But today's guest is one of those who truly makes Superior what it is. Sidney Schmidt is a Superior Livestock rep, a first-generation one at that, which means he is somebody who has built his book of business and his network from the ground up. He is a Kansas man, and we are so very honored to have him on the show. So, Sidney, welcome to Leaders of the West.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. It's good to be here.
Okay, so let's start things off. Tell us a little bit more about who you are. Obviously, I said you're from Kansas. You are a Superior Livestock rep, but what did your life look like in those early days? Have you always been a cow man? Give us the details.
So I grew up right next to our family farm. My grandpa and uncle were operating it, and my dad, he worked in a John Deere store for 40 some years. He was the employee there. So I spent a lot of time. My dad, of course, was at work, but grandpa didn't care if I came over. So I spent a lot of time on the farm and around cattle and that kind of stuff as a kid growing up. Then as I got a little older, went out on my own, I had did some farming and got the opportunity to get involved in a backgrounding yard and did that for about 10 years. Backgrounded, started cattle, and somewhere in there, I forget how many years it was, I actually went back to work for my uncle on his cattle side of things and was helping him. That was all. I'd help out on the farm too some, but obviously the cattle was the main side of it. And that's where I really got introduced to Superior. He had a Superior rep and was selling with Superior, and we started to use him more and more. And with me being heavily involved with the cattle side, I worked with him more. So got the opportunity to kind of see how it worked. And through that, he was starting to get a little older, and I talked to him a time or two, and it kind of was a several year process before I came on board with Superior. But Keith Goff was the rep, and he helped me get started, and that was my introduction to Superior. So I spent quite a few years. Yeah, we had cows and calves and in background. And I mean, I tell people that before I went to work for my uncle, I think it was around 750 days in a row I was at the feed yard every day without a break because I was kind of a one-man show. And so I got a real good taste of the industry and what it takes to keep cattle going and all that stuff. So that was really my background into Superior.
So obviously you had mentioned that this was something that you had talked about with Keith over a multi-year period. It wasn't a decision that you just woke up one day and said, you know what, honey, I'm going to be a Superior Livestock rep. So what was it that finally made you say yes to that opportunity? Or what was it that enticed you or excited you most about that potential?
So I don't know if I can answer that 100%. I have always liked auctions and people and cattle, those three. I've always enjoyed those three things. And so that part of it was all of that. Of course, Superior was involved in all of that. And then probably part of it was also that my uncle was kind of wanting to change his operation a little bit, maybe not run quite as many cattle. So I knew I was kind of looking for a sideline, something else to do in the part-time, Prior to that, I had been so busy, I really didn't have time to really think about doing something else or going to Superior. And so my plan was when I started was I would just do this. And if I could sell, a few thousand head a year, it'd be a nice sideline. And I think within 6 months, I quit my job and went full-time with Superior because I didn't have time to do anything else. I think that's what it was. Something like that. I didn't ever quite envision what took place. I really didn't. I mean, maybe once in a while you'd think, well, it'd be nice if it worked that way, but I don't know that I ever quite envisioned it working the way it worked.
Well, because honestly, we're all smart enough to know, or at least we should be smart enough to know that it never actually works out the way you want things to work out. And then when they do, it's kind of shocking that you think, man, I truly could not have painted any better or bigger of a picture.
Yeah, no, I definitely couldn't have. It far exceeded my expectations.
So in that whole process, then kind of going back to you and Keith, did you guys work alongside each other over that time period? Or at the time when you kind of came on as a Superior Livestock rep, did he at that point retire and kind of hand you his book of business? Was he still active as you were as well? How did that whole process work?
No, he was still active, and he's pretty well retired now, but he was active, and I mean, did not hand me any of which that wasn't our agreement. I wasn't expecting him to. He just said, I'll help you. And so he showed up at all my deliveries and first contracts, all that, and walked me through the process, what it took to get all that started, and on my deliveries and helped me. So there was somebody there to kind of walk me through all that initial stuff. But as far as business wise and all that customer base, that was up to me.
So he almost kind of served in the role of like a business coach or a mentor as far as
Sure.
I'll help you walk the walk and kind of show you how it's done, but I'm still going to do this too. And I'm not giving you obviously any of my business.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So what did those early days look like? Because obviously for the fact that you thought that this was just going to be something that you did on the side as an extra way to make income. And then 6 months into this, you realize, wow, I need to quit my full-time job to go all into this. How did you manage that in those early days? That's question number one. And question number two is that when you look at your other rep peers in the industry, are there other people who have also had that type of success? I can't imagine that you are just a one-off, one-hit wonder. Not that I don't believe in you, Sidney, because I absolutely do. But I definitely want to make sure to paint like a very realistic picture for people, because somebody might hear that and think, man, I'm going to go get with SLA today and I am going to be a rep. And in 6 months, I'm going to be able to quit my job too. That's not necessarily how that always works. But for many people, it absolutely can when they put the work behind the wish.
So you're making me second guess myself whether it was actually 6 months or was it a year, maybe a year. I'm going to leave some room whether it was 6 months or a year. Whatever it was,
We'll give that room to you.
Yeah, very shortly. However it was now. In my head, it was 6 months, but somebody might go, what's he talking about? It was a year, but whatever. Anyway, it was a short amount of time. And I would say this, that because I had been, okay, I don't want to paint a dark picture, definitely, because Superior is a fantastic place to work. And I want to talk more about this later, but the support that came from the company and all that stuff was tremendous. The support I received helped me grow this a lot. But probably the thing I would say the most is, so those 10 to 15 years that I spent in the industry working every day, running a feed truck, doctoring sick cattle, and working in the industry with my neighbors and friends and people around me. Then when I went into Superior, there was a group of people that knew me and trusted me and that were willing to give me the opportunity. And I would go over there and say, hey, I'm working for Superior now as part-time. Like, I'd be interested in selling your calves. Is this something you want to give it a chance and give it a try? Or maybe, and Superior's had a presence in my area for quite a while. So it wasn't a new thought to these guys. Some of them had even maybe sold on Superior years ago and they had just drifted away, over the past 10 years, they drifted away or something, so it was go back to those guys. And the cattle industry, I think, like probably most industries, but it is a people business. And while our job is to sell and market cattle, but our job is our customers. That, I would say, had a lot to do with my early success of getting going, was being able to be in a stat. Like, if I just moved into a new area and started for Superior and didn't know the area, didn't know the people, and didn't have that'd be an uphill battle, because people they want to trust who's selling their cattle. They want to know them and trust them. And I would say that's not to say that you couldn't do it, without having either maybe a family member that's already doing it to help you get going or something like that, to start. But to have the background of being in the business and people that know you and trust you, that's a real help and I think a benefit.
And you said too, when you first started, obviously, in addition to Keith, you did have a lot of support from Superior and the resources that they provided. It's definitely a company that they want their reps to be successful. They don't want to have a bunch of reps and then not have them be successful, because that's not going to be a good relationship for anybody involved.
Exactly. Yeah. So early on, I made a decision, and I don't really know how that even came about, but I just decided that I would start going to as many of the sales as I could And so I went to Fort Worth, Hudson Oaks there to the sales to most of them, and I didn't really know that very many people when I started going. I didn't know anybody there, but I would just sit in the back of the room or whatever, and slowly got to know people there. And a lot of the reps there, they were friendly and willing to help and reach out. And then the company around me, they definitely have an interest in all their reps, but they definitely have an interest in young guys that are wanting to get started, and they want to keep growing that, and so they took an interest in me and were willing to give me help and ideas and thoughts and try this or do that or make sure you do this, and then what that did for me and what they did for me was that then when I would talk somebody into selling with me, they would make sure that it was handled well. That right away, people are like, hey, that worked out pretty good. I think we'll do it again, and you start to grow from there. So it wasn't like whatever success I've had was all mine. It was
a group effort.
A group effort, for sure. For sure. I have had lots and lots of help.
So when it comes to one of the elements of your job, you are continually building relationships with cattle producers. I feel like our industry is well known as being a little, I don't want to say untrusting, nor do I necessarily want to say unwilling to change, but we're definitely not just going to put all of our eggs in someone's brand new shiny basket. So what does it actually take to earn a cattle producer's trust?
That's an interesting question because I can tell you a story that I had. So I did quite a few cold calls, which are one of my least favorite things to do.
Oh, you and me both.
Oh, I don't know why. Part of it was a lot of the places where I had worked were along a highway. And so everybody that had something to sell would stop in and take my time. And I'd be processing cattle and there'd be another salesman wanting to talk to me. And I got really annoyed at him. And then all of a sudden here I was this guy. And so I had one experience that I'd had somebody tell me, hey, this is a guy that might be worth your time to go sit down and visit with. And I showed up there and they didn't know me at all. We sat down and visited, and I thought the visit went pretty well. In my mind, it went pretty well. But when I went back, I got a really cold shoulder and it never progressed. It wound up being kind of a bad experience. But I learned a lot because in hindsight, I showed up there as this young whippersnapper with this shiny basket you were talking about, and told them they were making mistakes. Basically, I didn't mean to tell them this. I never said it in so many words, but basically I said, oh, what you've been selling them is crazy. What I can do for you is way better than what you've been doing. These guys that are experienced and had been doing it a long time. And I've never been able to find out for sure if that's what turned them off so bad. But in my mind, the longer I did it, the more I realized, so to show up with some humility, like, here's an option I'd like to offer you, but to show up with some humility, like I'm also here to learn from you. I'd be willing to learn from you. And if you see some advantages in this thing, I'd be happy to try to help. That I think was a part of it because I'm such a believer in Superior that, I just roll up and, hey, this is the best thing you guys could ever do. Like, why can't you see it? And that really, most guys they've built this farm and ranch over the past 2 or 3 or 4 generations. And then you show up and tell them what they're doing is crazy. That's not really going to work very good. So building that trust. And then sometimes it's just some of the places, I'd stop in once a month, and just look at cattle with them. And you wouldn't talk that much about selling cattle, just so, how things are going and what you can do there and find a way to help them. If there's a way you can help them or provide some value to them and they start to have some value, then they become more willing to trust you. I think that's really been my goal. And I don't know that I've always accomplished it, but to make sure that if someone's using me to sell their cattle, that I'm providing them with value in their operation.
No, that is perfect advice. And it is so true. I think even that tracks across all industries. I sit here, obviously, as I listen to you and think about the humility of if I were a company and I were to come in and say, hey, Sidney, I know how you've been hiring and it's on somewhere else. And let me tell you what, you should come hire on Of the West because however you're doing it now is crazy. I mean, yeah, it probably is a little bit crazy, right? But if I come in there with that assumption of clearly the reason that you're doing it the way you're doing it, it's because it's worked. We typically, especially in our industry, and I do want to always say this, I understand why we are resistant to change, but we also have to think about why that is. There is so much out of our control that why would you go ahead and change the thing that you know is working when it is one of the few things you actually have true 100% control over? So I think that we need to kind of take a step back from that in that sense. But there is so much importance put on just adding value and helping people. And maybe it has absolutely nothing to do with you. Maybe you bring donuts and say, hey, it's Donut Friday or whatever that looks like. Here's something for the people who work for you. And it has nothing to do with the owner or his cattle or what that looks like. But after a while, that is part of building relationships. And like you said at the beginning of the show, we do business with people and people we trust and people who we know are going to take care of our people, not necessarily people who are going to come in and magically wave their wand and change our business. That's not really what we want.
Yes. And I don't know where this fits into this whole conversation here, if this fits in here or somewhere down the road, if you want to talk more about this, but talk about people helping people. Like another component is, and this is one of the things I learned very much from watching some of the other reps and very successful reps and the way they've done their business, manage their business, is while the ranch, the farm is my customer and it's my job to take care of him and market his cattle at the best to my abilities. But I also have this other side over here that is the buyer that has bought these cattle. And so when we're shipping cattle to him and when he's buying cattle and my name's on, he wants to trust that when those cattle walk off the truck, they're going to be what I said they were. And I'm going to treat him fairly. And if there is a problem, he'll be able to get a hold of me. I'll answer my phone. We can deal with the problem. And so that is a whole other side to this business that is very important, because you can take the best care ever of your farm and ranchers. But if you are forever screwing your buyers over, you can no longer sell your customers cattle well, because you just lose buyers and buyers are like, no, we're just going to sort that one off to the side because we just had too much trouble from him. And so that's a whole other side to this whole thing that you got to keep in mind, is that you do have to wear two hats and you need to manage that. And you have those conversations with your customers, your farmer, your rancher, that look, I'm protecting your reputation also. Like we've been talking about, this is a trust business and a people business. Well, those feed yards I shipped some cattle this morning that when we're going 300 miles from where we were at here in Kansas. And, that seems a long ways away to that customer. That's way up over there. Don't worry about that. And they weren't a problem. There was no problems this morning. But what I'm saying is that have that conversation with your customer that, look, me doing a good job in the sorting pen. And while I'm sorting some cattle back that maybe you wish would go on the truck, but
long term,
exactly. Long-term relationships, no matter what you're doing in this business, long-term relationships pay off. They pay big dividends.
Oh, they totally do. And I love that you brought that up. And again, it is such a great reflection. So we are a very similar business. So obviously we work with employers, but then the other piece of the group that we work with are job seekers. And traditionally speaking, about 80% of us work for the other 20%. So there's 80% job seekers, 20% employers. And I would say that that's probably a pretty similar stat when it comes to cattle producers and cattle buyers. There's a whole lot more producers than there are buyers. That's how the market has to be. And so we hear a lot of conversations from our job seekers because they take up that larger piece of the pie, right? They're like the cattle producers and they have certain needs. And obviously we have to meet those needs, because if we don't meet the needs, then they're not going to come use our platform. But we also have to meet the needs of our employers, because they're the ones who are paying to post their jobs on our site. So just this week, we sat down with a number of different employers from different sectors of the industry, different company sizes. Maybe some of them hire at different volumes, but to really get a feel of, okay, what are your thoughts on the platform? How can we help you? Where are you having problems? What are elements that you really like or enjoy having that you can't find elsewhere? What is the quality of candidates? And even identifying some, and I don't want to call them problems by any means, but things that job seekers appreciate that actually for employers, they find kind of frustrating when it comes to the usability of things. And so now we take that information and we have to go back and, okay, how can we make this best for everybody involved? But I think that is something that is so important. Oftentimes we do get focused on one big shiny thing, right? Who is the person who is writing the check? They obviously, they're paying your bills. But guess what? If you are only focusing on them, the other person down the road is not going to feel fulfilled. They're probably not going to come back for business. And then you're also going to lose that paying audience as well.
I agree completely with that. And I think that's one thing that Superior really has an advantage. So there's a lot of people that buy and sell cattle in this industry. And I'm not trying to downplay anybody else's way of doing business, but I'm such a believer in the way Superior does business. So there's a lot of people that buy and sell and trade cattle in this industry. Some of them work strictly for, let's say, a particular feed yard. And that is their employer. That's who writes their checks. That's who pays their bills. And so they really aren't working for like the farmer ranch. Some of them do a real good job of it, but really their employer is the feed yard. Whereas as Superior, our customer base is kind of both of them, because we have to work for both of them. Because if I am only trying to find bargains for the feed yard, I can't build a book of business with farmers and ranchers that want to do business with me. If I'm not delivering good products to the feed yards, they soon won't do business with me and I can't do a good job for my farmers. So it's kind of, we work for both, because I've just seen some instances take place where maybe a particular person is just a buyer for a particular feed yard. And then again, I'm not slandering anyone or anybody. I just think Superior has a leg up in that area right there where we are kind of working for both entities. And just like what you said, while it is an 80-20, but we're working for both of them.
Yeah, you want, at the end of the day, you want everybody who is involved in that transaction to be happy, because that is, again, the ultimate goal, is to leave people better than you found them and continue to see this industry through. And if we only focus on one side of that coin, then unfortunately, it's not going to last. I think that that is so spot on. So let's talk a little bit, though, about the future of selling cattle. I feel like the way that livestock is marketed has really changed a lot. Where do you see it going over the next 10, 20, 30 years?
That's a good, and I noticed in your intro, and I love bringing this up, you talk about Jim Odell and Buddy Jeffers and their vision that they had. And I tell people often, if I had the vision that those two men had in 1987 and say that we're going to sell cattle on satellite TV, their vision and where the company is today, that's tremendous insight and vision into this industry. I always admire and respect tremendously those men's insight and vision. But I do think that the video is uniquely positioned to serve our customers' needs. Really the beef industry's employer is a consumer, and the consumer has certain thoughts and demands about what they want and where they want to know more about their food. And the way cattle are sold with the video, where the cattle can stay on the farm, they get to stay put, they're kept together as a group. There's so many things that you can maintain and tell the story about where your beef is coming from with the video. And I think that's going to continue to be important. I think agriculture has to continue to tell their story and tell it in a way that is palatable to the consumer, And I think that is one thing that the video is uniquely positioned to do. Now, again, I'm in no way saying we're going to always need cell barns. Cell barns have a very, very important role to fill in this industry. But I do think the video has some unique abilities to continue to work that way. And as far as where we're going to be at in the future, and as we go down the road, I know there's people talk about some of this industry becoming too captivated, maybe, and owned by bigger and bigger operations. I don't know. And again, I would never claim to be a visionary, and I could be wrong, but I see a lot of opportunity in this industry right now. I think in certain areas, and I should look this up because I don't know the figure on this, but I know there's quite a few acres that come out of production every year to urban sprawl. And let's take right here in my state of Kansas, and especially where I live in Kansas and southwestern Kansas, we don't have urban sprawl here. There's probably never going to be urban sprawl here in this part of Kansas. And there's a real opportunity. I think it's been largely a farming community in a lot of ways, but with water changing and irrigation and some of that all is changing, cattle are beginning to fill a more and more important role in agriculture in this area. I think we're positioned personally in a very we're talking about the cattle herd in America being at the smallest numbers it's been at for a long, long time. And I think we're uniquely positioned right where I live to absorb some of those numbers that are disappearing in other places and to continue to grow that and to do it efficiently. So I'm excited about where I live and where the industry is going. I think there's a real open door for opportunity as we go long term. I know that we're worried about this market. We're really high right now. We're probably going to come down at some point in time. But even with this market, as it comes down, there's going to be lots of opportunity, I think, to grow a cow herd. When the market's really high, isn't necessarily always the best time to start and grow a cow herd. Cows are, bred stock is really expensive right now. And so maybe as this market, whenever that is, I'm not saying, I'm certainly not predicting when that's going to happen. But when it might or when it does, I think there's an opportunity in this area to expand into that. So I'm excited about the industry and about where we're headed.
You mean you don't have a crystal ball of the cattle industry, Sidney?
I wished I did have one. I'd love that.
Oh, you and me both. I want to go back to just the importance of the void that Superior fills in the market. And I also want to go back to what you said about not being anti-sale yard. I love when people and companies understand that they have to have competitors in the market for the market to exist. And I think you bring up a great point. Superior is a great place when it comes to selling your weaned calves and your yearlings and your pairs and things like that. But it is not necessarily the best place to sell an old bull or old cows or singles, right? It is meant for more of a truckload type of buying experience. And that is absolutely the void that an auction barn still very necessarily fills. The other thing that I think a lot of people are not necessarily aware of, especially for those who are maybe in the Midwest where you can throw a stone and hit an auction barn or a sale yard of some kind. The entire state of Nevada has 2 sale yards. They are both located in the same town, in Fallon, Nevada. So make that make sense as to how you are supposed to put your animals on a truck for a number of hours to take them to the one town that has a sale yard. And then, especially in the fall run, there are days where there are 3,000, 4,000 head. Then you're going to make them sit there for a long time. And I will say, like, those sale yards that are in Nevada, no shame to them because they are incredible at what they do. They are a well-oiled machine. They know how to best care for those animals and make sure that they're not selling into all hours of the night. They'll stop at a certain time. They'll start the sale the next day just to make sure that all people who are selling have a fair chance at having butts in seats when it comes to buyers. So I definitely want to make that known as well. But logistically, that is where a company like Superior comes in and shines because not every producer has the ability to do that. They don't necessarily want to lose the shrink in their calves. So it just makes sense.
Yes, I agree completely with that. Like we see that like when we're in our summer sales and we're traveling, to those Colorado or where we have one in Winnemucca, Nevada, get out to that part of the world. And it is almost necessary. Superior is almost necessary. I mean, because like you said, there can be a real void there that really gets filled very, very well by Superior.
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the type of person that is, I don't want to say perfect because none of us are perfect, although I would like to think I am on occasion. But who is the best person that is cut out to be a representative for Superior Livestock? There's also 2 types of reps. There's commercial reps and there are purebred reps. So while you may be a great commercial candidate, you maybe wouldn't be the best purebred candidate or vice versa. So who do you think is going to be most successful for themselves, but then also for the people that they're representing and ultimately for Superior?
That's a really good question. I would say that, and again, like you said, we're not talking about perfect here because none of us are perfect. And
Except you and me.
It's interesting. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting to see like there are different personalities that are very successful at Superior, amongst the reps. But by and large, you need to be a person that doesn't mind people. Like some people, they're just wired. If they can get a horseback with a dog, that's their best day ever. And they don't need people around them. And if people annoy you and make you mad, this would be a bad business to be in for you.
Yeah, you got to be a people person. You got to be on your phone a lot.
Yeah, if every time your phone rings, you want to stomp on it, don't become a Superior rep because you will not be successful because your phone is going to ring. And if it doesn't ring, you're not. That's what I always tell my kids. We just get in the pickup, go somewhere and the phone rings. We're like, oh, Dad. And I'll hang up the phone and give them a lecture because I'm like, hey, the day we have a problem is when that phone quits ringing. That's the day we have a problem, not the day when it's ringing and interrupting us. The reps that are really successful, this industry means a lot to them. They love this industry. They're interested in this industry. They're always paying attention to the market. They're always paying attention to new trends that are coming up so they can help their customers add value to their operations. They're paying attention to whether it's breed type or whether it's, this programs or what's working here, what's working there. It needs to be something that interests you, fascinates you, and because it's going to take a lot of your time and a lot of your life. And so it should be something that you're not going to have fun every day because I don't know a job yet where you have fun every day. But there's going to be days that are just the wind's blowing, the dirt's blowing, and it's just nasty. And you'd like to be doing something different. That's normal. But I always think if you don't love it, you're going to be pretty poor at it.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think you also have to have a genuine love for cattle too, and be pretty good at assessing just to, again, make sure that your sellers are happy, your buyers are happy. Obviously, having a little humility, being a person of your word. Those are obviously important qualities, but that's not just specific to Superior. That is going to be the secret to success in any position. One other thing, though, that I do want to mention, because for somebody who is maybe interested in this type of career, this is something you can do at any age. And you, yes, are a full-time Superior rep, but there are also people who do it part-time as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you put the rest of your life on hold to pursue this endeavor and then slowly but surely work your way up to a full-time opportunity. There are a lot of people who are very successful at it who do it in addition to what they're already doing.
Yes, very much so. In fact, there's way more of those than just those of us that are, of course, all of us have other things. I mean, everybody's got some cows or they're running stockers or everybody's doing something else, seems like.
Yeah, this is agriculture. We all have multiple irons in the fire.
You wouldn't want to be bored, but I completely agree. There's way more reps it's a more of a part-time thing that they do alongside their ranch, alongside their farm, alongside whatever else they're doing. And that works very well. This isn't something that you have to do full-time. But if you want to do it, I mean, you can do it full time, obviously. I mean, do it if you want to give that much time to it. But if it's something that you want to do alongside, that also works. There's way more of those than those of us to do it full time.
I love that. Okay, I want to make sure that we get to our rapid fire round. Sidney, what is it that you hope people remember most about you?
Oh my. Does it have to just be one thing they remember
You
most
can do
about
two.
me?
You can do two.
Because there's kind of I don't know that that's something I don't think about much at 42 or 3. I forget how old I am, but that's not something I think a lot about. I would like people to remember that I loved God and loved my family and that I enjoyed people.
Those are good. What is a non-negotiable in your life?
A non-negotiable in my life, I would have to say honesty and integrity. Like, you have to be able to feel good about yourself when you go home. Even if there's days when you take phone calls and things didn't go well and somebody was unhappy and just didn't go well. But when at the end of the day, you know that you did your best and you told everybody the truth, you can still go to bed and get to sleep and get up the next morning and do it again.
I like that. Okay, if you were a professional athlete, what would your walk-up song be?
I honestly don't know that answer. I asked some people this question here a while back, and the answers I got were really they weren't helpful at all. They were off the wall. In fact, I was like, man, I don't know. It's a hard question for me to answer.
Okay, how about this? You get into your pickup and you just want to jam out. What is the song that you put on?
Oh my, I'm not going to have a good answer for you on that one either. I'm trying to remember the other day when I asked somebody that question. Now I'd have to go back and look because a couple of them I'm not going to repeat because they weren't repeatable, and they definitely weren't a good walk. Oh, somebody told me I don't know. You can't really tell it in the podcast, but I'm not exactly just a small person. You probably can't see it there, but somebody told me they thought Big John would be a good one. I could probably go with that one.
Oh, that is I like that. I like that. That is a good song. Okay, what's the smartest thing someone's ever told you?
There's so many things out there that I feel like has been valuable to me, but with me and my nature, this is something that my dad told me. I don't know how many times he told me this, and I had it hammered home time and time again to me growing up. My nature would be that details aren't that important to me, and I'd do something and it wouldn't be quite right, and my dad would say, Sidney, it's in the details. Details, details, details. He'd repeat that 3 times. I don't know how many times I heard that growing up. Pay attention to the details. It's in the details. And I think whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your work, no matter what it is, details are important.
Oh, amen to that. Okay, last question for you. Favorite things. Do you have a favorite book, a podcast, a product, some life hack? You're obviously on the road a lot. Do you have a favorite gas station? What's just something that's changed your life and you just think more people need to know about it?
That's another good question. I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite books, and it may not be a book that very many people know about because it's an old book, but it was a book I grew up reading, and I've read it multiple times, and it's just a fun book to read. It's an old Harold Bellwright book, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the author Harold Bellwright, but he's got a book titled When a Man's a Man. It's a Western book. It's about the Old West. It's just a fantastic book, and the end of it is about a man becoming a man, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that book and loved that book and read it numerous times.
Oh, that sounds like a good one. I'm going to have to write that down for my husband and then my son. But I'll make sure for those of you who are also listening and maybe you want to look into that book that we link that in the show notes as well. Sidney, oh my goodness, thank you so much for being here today. If you're listening to this conversation and you're thinking about what a career as a Superior Livestock rep could look like for you, I would love for you to go check them out. We will have their Of the West careers page included in the show notes of today's episode. So if you scroll down, please don't do that while you're driving though. grab that link, whether you're looking to become an independent representative, whether that's on the commercial side of things, on the purebred side of things, or if you might be interested in working alongside of their team in one of their 4 offices that are across the U.S. Superior truly is an incredible company to have a career with. And if you guys are an employer in this industry and you want to be reaching the kind of audience that tunes into the show every week, Superior Livestock, they have always been a visionary in business. And they figured out a long time ago that the people they want to hire, the people who want to join their team, those are the people who are looking for their careers on Of the West. So they are one of our unlimited hiring partners, and that partnership exists because we both believe in what the other is really building. We are so appreciative to Superior. So of course, you can find out more about what that looks like at Of the West or by reaching out directly. Sidney, thank you so much for today. I hope that you have the greatest day. Thank you guys for listening. Please do us a favor. Tell us your favorite part about the show. Of course, go tag us in your stories, but we will catch you back here next week with a brand new episode. See you then. If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.